Hello, mathletes. This is the Math Guy, and I have created this channel to help those like me that struggle to grasp math and its concepts. If you find my examples and videos helpful, please support my channel by clicking the subscribe button below and the bell icon to receive more notifications and tips when I upload more content. Okay, so before we get started, let's go over a few graphing terms to help us through our journey. Okay, so here we have we call it Cartesian plane or graph as we know it. And as you see going across, what we have is the x-axis going this way from left to right, and going up and down, you have what we call the y-axis. In the center where they meet, we call that an origin. And when you do this cross, the four different squares created by the graph or the cross are called quadrants. Quadrant 1, 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. Okay, in quadrant 1, everything's going to be positive. Your y's and your x's are positive, so this is what it's going to look like, a plus and a plus. Quadrant 2, your x's are negative, but your y's are positive on this side. Quadrant 3 is the opposite of quadrant 1. Both are negative, so you have a negative and a negative. Quadrant 4, you're going to have a positive x, but a negative y. Okay? Any point is known as a coordinate, an x and y coordinate, as you can see here. Okay, and it's also known as an ordered pair. So an ordered pair is basically the address to any given location on this graph. Okay, so here we're going to take a look at some more terms. Okay, so where your your line crosses the x-axis is also known as this dot here, the x-intercept. Where your line crosses the y-axis is called a y-intercept. Okay, these points are usually very unique and they're very good for establishing graphs because one of the values is 0. So and on the y-axis, you can see your x value is 0, and going on the x-axis, there is no y, so your y value is 0. And that usually helps us when we're trying to graph a particular problem. They're ideas that you have to use in order to get to wherever your answer is. Haven't done any problems yet. We'll get to that in a second, but it's good to know these concepts so they can help us find our answers. Okay, one of the most important things we need to talk about when it comes to lines is the slope. Slope is nothing more than a rate of change. You can see here a rate of change, and that rate of change is defined by the rise over the run. So for however many you go from right to left, how many are you going to go up? Okay, so that's the slope. If it's not all clear right now, we're going to go into detail as to what that means in a second with some examples. Okay, every time you see some type of equation that you have to graph, they're going to be rather in two forms, which is going to be standard form or y slope form. Intercept y form or sloped intercept form is usually the way I'd like to call it. So those are the two ways you'll usually see equations. All right, so let's get right to it. One of the most important parts about graphing, or probably the number one most important thing about graphing, is slope. Okay, once we understand, I guess, slope, then everything else should like naturally kind of like fall into place. Okay, when we're talking about linear equations or lines that are straight and have a rate of change, a rise over run, a slope, they're usually very straightforward. So let's just take a look at that. So here we have a slope again, which is a rate of change. And if you see an equation in standard form, which is we just showed, which is ax plus by equals c. If you take your a, okay, and you put it over the b, and you make it negative, that's basically your slope. So your slope is whatever this value is, negative over b, and if one of them is negative, this whole equation here, this whole formula becomes positive a over b. We'll see. We'll go through some examples of that so you can see how this can help you when you're doing some problems. We're gonna go over some practice problems. In slope-intercept form, the beauty is that your m is right here, and that's your slope. Immediately you see what your slope is because it's right in front of you. Okay, your m is the m formula. If the actual formula for m, if you have 2 points, is denoted by y1 minus, or excuse me, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And I'll tell you right now, usually when I graded papers for students, the biggest mistake, they knew the formula, but the biggest mistake that they made was they did not put the corresponding x coordinate or y coordinate in the right place. So if you take a point 3 and 2, your x has to be here, your 3 and your 2 here. Sometimes they put their 3 here and then the 2 over here, when it's supposed to be 1 to 1, one above each other. Okay, so let's take a look at an example here for an equation that we have here. Okay, if we take a look at this equation here, x plus 2y is equal to 4. Well, just by looking at this, I can tell you that the slope is going to be 1 over 2. And the reason it's 1 is because even if you don't see a number in front of your x or your variable, the number that it's representing is a 1. And just, and if you look back at our formula of here of negative a over b, this becomes negative. So it's negative 1 over 2. That's my slope. Okay. Now let's see, I mean, if you can't do that, or you can't figure out how to get to that, or maybe that still doesn't make sense, let's actually just work through this problem and convert this equation from standard form to slope form, because that's probably what you're going to want to do every single time you get an equation in this form, which is standard form. You're going to want to change it into a y-intercept slope form, or y equals the equation. You want to isolate your y. Let's go ahead and do that. So first thing we want to do is we want to do minus x here and then minus x here. So your new equation would basically look like 2y is equal to minus x plus 4. Okay, now to get rid of this 2, we're going to divide by 2. We're going to divide all this by 2. Okay, so these 2's will cancel. You'll have a y, and you're going to be equal to, this is going to be minus 1 over 2x. When you combine these two, you'll get this. And then you take the 4 and divide it by 2, and you're going to get 4 divided by 2 is 2. So let's just write over here a little plainer. So y is equal to minus 1/2 x plus 2. Okay, so that's basically where we are with this equation. Let's go ahead and graph this. So if we want to say that they want to put this on the actual graph, we basically used our slope form. We say or our intercepts. We can use our intercepts to help us graph this, and you only really need 1 point to graph. So what we do is we say, okay, well let x be 0, and we have y is equal to 1/2 0, right? Plus 2. Well, anything multiplied by 0 basically goes away. So you basically, so thing goes, and then you're left with y is equal to 2. So your point is, for x is 0, your y is going to be 2. So that's your point. If we go back to our graph, so we know it's going to be 0, is going to be at y2 and no x, so you're going to be right here. Okay, we know the slope is -1/2. So in order to just draw a line, we have a point and we have a line. What we do is we go down 1. So we go here, it's 1. And then we're going to go over 2. We're going to do 1 and 2. This would be your second point. So if you wanted to draw the line, if you wanted to know what the line is for this equation, it would look something like this. It would be this point. It would be this line here. It looks something like that. Okay? This part in here is your slope. It's the rate of change denoted by your slope. You went down 1 and then you went over 2. So this is where your slope is, and this is consistent everywhere on this line. So any point that you want to go to from one point to another is going to have 1 down and 2 over. Okay, for its slope. All right, let's go ahead and graph this other line. So for example, this one is already given to us in y-intercept form. So this one is even easier. I mean, all we got to do is plug in 0. We already know what the slope is. So my m is going to be 2 over 1. Okay, so if you usually just see a number without it being a fraction, it's usually denoted that a 1 is underneath it. So your slope is just 2 over 1. Okay, that's my slope. So here, if we want a point, we just say y is equal to 2 times 0 minus 1. Well, 2 times 0 is just 0, so y is equal to minus 1. So your point would be for 0, your y is -1. So let's go ahead and graph this point. So if we go to 0, which is here, and then we go down to -1, well, this is right here. Okay? Now the slope for this one is positive, so the line is going to be increasing, which is something we will be discussing. So we're going to go up 2 and then over 1. For this one, we're going to go as our slope is saying, we're going to go up 2 and then over 1. So from here, we're going to go up 2 would look like this. 1. I'm going to go 1 here and then 2 and then here. So that's your other point. So your line for this one is going to look something like this. Okay, and here's for this one, your triangle is here. Let me try this in another color, I guess. So let's try. So this triangle over here is the slope, or the rate of change for this line is right here. Okay, and you can see this line is increasing. Oops, let's change that. So this line would be increasing. Okay, this line is decreasing. I had a lot of students always ask me, your arrows are pointing in each direction. How do you know which ones, why isn't it the other way around? Well, the simple answer to that is, if you don't know how you can tell if one is increasing or decreasing, is always remember English, or how you read. You read from left to right. So if you're reading and you're reading from left to right, that means you're going this way. So as you're going this way, this line here, this line is going up. Okay, that's based on going left to right, how you would read. If you are reading and you're looking at the other line, for example, if you're reading and you're going this way, this line, you can tell, is going down. This line is decreasing. And you always want to read and look at your stuff from left to right. So, okay, that's basically what some of the most basic things we want to understand and know when we're talking about slope. Okay, that'll do it for now. If you found this video helpful, please click the like button as it will help me for future videos. If you have any questions or ideas for a video, please leave them in the comments below. Thank you. Until next time.